Welcome to the Boardroom Sessions podcast. In these sessions, we meet the most amazing and interesting people. We learn about their passions, their business models, cool new technologies, and of course, their lessons on personal growth. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to a very special Boardroom Sessions podcast where we recorded live at an Orange County Technology Professionals Group event. I hosted a panel of AI experts there, and we recorded. This is an expert panel with Kristy Thomas, who's an industry expert from Intelisys, who runs a portfolio of companies and is very ground zero on the capabilities of conversational AI. We meet with Tyson McDowell on the panel as well, who's with Grayscale Ventures and a venture capitalist. He's bought and sold and ran multiple different companies around AI. We also meet with Kennington of DialPad, who has some AI built into their platform that we discuss. And we have a general conversation around the technology and some great questions from the field. Hope you enjoy. All right. So conversation about conversational AI, all right? A lot of talk is going on out there around AI. Everybody's excited about it. ChatGPT is getting all kinds of, and OpenAI is getting all kinds of press. So I wanted to first ask the question of the group, has anybody here used OpenAI or ChatGPT to write their performance reviews for the folks? Tom just raised his hand. So those are some of the use cases that are out there for AI right now on ChatGPT, right? There's a whole lot of buzz going on about that. I don't know if you guys saw the Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk interview that's been going around on YouTube. They're pretty alarming, that forced me to go listen to a couple podcasts, and I gotta tell you, I'm a little nervous about the future of the world as we see it. But that's not what we're gonna talk about today, believe it or not. We're going to talk about a derivative of AI called conversational AI. And I really want to dive into what is hype, what are real life use cases. I'm involved in several vendor vetting scenarios right now. And as a professional, solutions consultant, vendor agnostic guy, I spend an inordinate amount of time out trying to educate myself, and I'm very confused. I'm just going to say it. I go to trainings, I go to conferences. I was just at a conference with Kristy. I'm going to another one next week out in Vegas, where every single vendor that known to man that's sharing their wares will be there pitching and telling us all how they're gonna solve the problems at the call center, how they're gonna lay off people and save money and better customer experience and all that kind of hype, if you will. Because right now it is kind of hype. But can I get a show of hands of someone who in the last week has talked to a chatbot or a voice bot? All right, just about everybody. So we've had some experiences. I have a panel here of experts that are experts in their products and services. And so let me introduce them without further ado, and then I'll have them give a little background on themselves. So Kristy Thomas is with Intelisys, also known as ScanSource, right? And Kristy Thomas is a product expert. She's a CX expert. She's been in the unified communications and contact center space for a while. I don't want to age you and tell you how long, but she truly is an expert. She has to vet vendors for professional living. They come to her, they want to be put in her portfolio and available to people like me that can bring them to enterprises. So she not only kicks the tires, makes sure they're legitimate, puts them in play, watches them when they do get approved, get into sales cycles with clients, land, and then see if they work or don't work. So she's feet on the street, nose to the grindstone of what's going on here with AI, correct? Then I've got Tyson McDowell. He's a venture capitalist, amongst other things. Tyson's launched a company that was based on an AI tool, right? And sold it, and now funding other companies and probably more knowledgeable about the future of what's going on here in this world than anyone. Conversational AI just being one small sliver of that, so I can't wait to hear more about that. And then I've got Stefan with DialPad here, and Stefan is DialPad has built conversational AI, or not conversational per se, but AI into their unified communications and contact center product. We're going to talk a little bit about it today too. And he's also buying your food and drinks today, so you want to thank him. All right. So we're going to have a little fun with this. I'm going to pepper in a couple questions that Terry went to ChatGPT and asked the question. What was the question, Terry? The question was, what questions would we ask at a panel event around conversational AI? Right? We got two sets of questions to answer, or two sets of questions to ask. They're pretty similar, which is another thing that you find in ChatGPT is if you ask the same question twice, you might get two different answers. So that's very interesting stuff right there. So we'll have a little fun with that as we go forward here. But without further ado, let me ask Tyson what your thoughts are on the space here in the conversational AI piece, aka chatbots and voice bots. And you mentioned to me some risks that you were thinking about, right, with Taiwan and things, and I want you to dive into that kind of a little bit.
Sure. Well, hi everyone. I'm the outsider. I'm not in your industry, but I love what you guys do. Short story, I think, is that conversational AI is theoretically going to make it easy to just talk to machines and we don't need people, and that's really not the case. I think it's a scaling function. The way that we've seen it roll out has allowed companies to relieve themselves of the idea that there's 90% of the contact they want to have with customers that they can't get around to. So they have customers that are on alternative communication channels like Twitter or Instagram or whatever. They have lots of different situations where people want to talk to a company and then they just don't because it's too inconvenient, especially millennials and younger like myself. And that's just going to open up access. Okay, so you get an opportunity to have more surface area. So that's a big part. I think that what's actually going to happen is you're going to have brands able to get more traffic coming into them. And it's unlikely you're really going to want to scale down your core talent that's bringing forward the quality of the brand. I mean, for menial things, sure, a chatbot can answer a question or two. But when it comes down to someone that needs to do customer service resolution, that needs to have confidence in the brand, that kind of thing, it's still going to escalate to your quality team. And that quality team is going to have way more power to be super empathetic with that individual, create value. So I think that from that perspective, you're going to see higher profitability and higher scalability thanks to these things, as opposed to just replace my whole call center. It's going to be more like, whoa, where's all this traffic coming from? And I'd really love to answer the questions of these people. So there was another part about risk.
The second part of the question was about, you said, you and I had a conversation where you were painting the picture of where the risk factor of the growth trajectory for ChatGPT and OpenAI are.
So ChatGPT, OpenAI, any of these systems, they're regressive learning systems. All that means is that right now they've got a snapshot of what's a good answer. And then people are doing things like curating the questions for today. So at very high scale, the next generation of training sets next year are going to be largely influenced by the very system itself. So it's going to start to regress. It'll start to look kind of stupid. And I think that as you're deploying, especially in the enterprise, the idea that AI is only as smart as when it was last trained is critical. So quality assurance, ensuring that you're not trusting it for too long, that there's always an escalation to an alternative quality review, A/B test. Those are all really important strategies as you implement. And it's definitely not a one and done deal. You don't want to broadcast this whole thing. It's got to be incremental. And I think as long as you focus on brand, you just don't want to trust it with your brand long term. Start nipping at the edges, experimenting, but definitely not wholesale replace. And that's not going to happen to you.
Awesome. Next question is for Kristy. So Kristy, let's talk a little bit about some of the use cases that are out there, right? And I'll paint a little picture for you first. So who here has been to SidePath office and had a taco at the taco guy, right? From the company called the Mexican Taco Guy. His name is Rene, but he goes by the Mexican Taco Guy, okay? That's his company's name. You guys raise your hands. You guys like those tacos? They're good, right? So let me give you an experience. This is what it takes to get the taco guy at your house or at your business. You call into Rene, and he says, go to my website on his voicemail. And you go to his website, forces you to go electronic, right? Because he's a contractor by day. And he's got multiple trucks, and he's running around doing contracting business, and he doesn't have time to answer the phone. So he pushes you right to his website. You go to his website, it's super easy. It's point and click. It's got little drop downs. You hit the little drop downs and you order your deal. And then immediately you get an SMS text. And the text says, "We got you," right? Then immediately the day before the order, you get a text, "Hey, we're good to go. We're going to see you tomorrow." Then the day of, "Hey, we're cooking your food. We're right around the corner." And if I answer back, "Hey, man, I need you a half hour later," you get a conversational bot comes back and forth and won't handle the interaction until things get taken care of. That's a one-man shop. Why can't a big company have that, right? That's one use case that I'm seeing out there that I've been involved in that's using, an outbound AI agent to push that text out, right? That's pretty basic. If you go back and forth in these conversations, they can get more elaborate. But the question for Kristy is, you see all kinds, I don't even know the numbers of folks that are out there and the deal cycles that are going on right now. What are some of the use cases that are happening in the enterprise?
Okay, so many different use cases, but before we talk about the use cases, it's really around stepping back and understanding where you're building the art possible for this technology. And before you can do that, the two critical things you need to evaluate is, where are we as a business? And is it technically feasible to implement this art if possible? And is it financially feasible? Because the biggest mistakes that are made, because I'm not only talking to organizations around how do they build a path to get into it, but we're also fixing poor implementations that have gone wrong of chatbot conversation AI. And it's and the foundation why the big companies can't do it is because they have unstructured data. They don't have an unstructured format to be able to leverage it for these chatbots to be able to act like we talked about. And so that's where value of consulting partners come in and help optimize that as a foundation, and then you build into it over time. So use cases, one use case that I'm seeing heavily in both. You can't hear me? Okay, how's that better? Okay.
It's better now.
It's so funny because I do this all the time and I'm always coaching people to hold it to their mouth, and here I just got coached. My AV guy would be so disappointed in me right now. And I'm blushing. Can you hear me now? Okay. So a couple use cases that we're doing a lot with conversational AI is this one in particular around banking. And in particular, transforming traditional banks, because now their competition is coming in from banking that's digital banks. And so going in and having the conversational AI collect information around who that caller is, and responsiveness is the key, but also in the back end, leveraging a lot of the intent data that they've been collecting to understand what the total worth of that customer is, not today, but in the future. And using that data and the sentiment of what the intent is. Historically speaking, a lot of what we do in contact centers is based on what humans say the reason why people are calling in. Now we're leveraging AI technologies and in conversations to actually use it for intent of why people are actually calling versus why the human on the other side is predicting why they're calling. And it's a different paradigm. The other use case that we use a lot of for conversational AI, Mike, is in the provider space, whether it's dental, whether it's in healthcare. It's really that entire journey that you just described for the taco guy, but around appointments, because appointment cancellation is one of the most expensive components with doctors. And how do you make sure that that person can't get to the appointment? It might be because they don't have a ride. And how do you coach them to get to the ride at the closest bus station or whatever that is in knowledge base? So there's a lot of use cases in reimagining the patient experience to make sure that appointment, also with that very expensive equipment that's going to be used, is executed.
So what I'm getting involved in several different client engagements right now around staff augmentation, if you will, right? That's been the goal. Hey, we have 250 people in our call center. We think we could do it with 200, right? Can we get rid of 50 people by taking care of some of our top use cases, right? Which is fine. And we look at the top use cases and they all come back to the most important use cases, which are appointment setting or product sale or things of that nature, right? And so it's interesting. I had a conversation with someone who may be in the room, not sure. But the conversation was, that they were looking to go the other direction. They were looking to bring into an IVR the right customer and then immediately route that to a person, wherever that person could be in the world, because they might be the closer, right? And get that closer on the phone with that person as quick as possible. So it's working in lots of different directions. It doesn't necessarily have to be pulling the person out of the solution. It's typically augmenting people, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Well, it's interesting because the human capital piece of a contact center, whether it's service support or sales, is the most expensive part. It's not the technology. 75% of the cost is associated with people. So how do you make sure that you're optimizing the high value agent in the way that it makes the biggest impact and gets that person satisfied as soon as possible? And it's an augmentation. Like, typically attrition in contact centers is anywhere on average, it's been 30%. Right now, over the past year, it's 48%. So there's not really, you're not eliminating people.
Any hands up here? People are having problems keeping people in the contact center? No one wants to raise their hand?
Any hands
No
trying
one's
to
admit?
find people? Talent? Training talent?
So another use case that I think that's very popular right now is ITSM tools, right? So ticketing.
Oh, yeah.
How many tickets are being handled by people that are picking up a phone, resetting a password, putting somebody into a queue, putting a ticket into what you name the ITSM tool? That takes time away from actually working the ticket, right? That person's typically the same person that's needed to go work the ticket. So why not have them work tickets and have something answer the phone and open up the ticket for it, right? That's a very popular use case right now.
Yeah, I read that password resets on average cost a company $75 every time. Just a password reset.
It's expensive.
It's expensive.
Expensive. So
Especially if you're supporting me.
So you brought up one of the topics here. I want to hand off to Stefan. You talked about the contact center and being able to enable the agent, right, and get the agent the right information at the right time and better the experience to keep the contact center agent happy, satisfied, productive, keep the client a better experience as well. And DialPad's actually built AI technology into the call center for this, right? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, thanks for y'all coming. Sometimes you'll get an executive, but I'm going to do my best. I've been working in the contact center space for about 5.5 years, having AI conversations because DialPad built this and deployed it over 5 years ago. So not ChatGPT in any way. We're not as popular in that regard, but we have millions of minutes of conversation that have been flowing through unified communications and contact center conversations over the last 5.5 years. And I think, coming from as far as a business strategy, we're a service provider, right? We're a product you put in front of your agent where they're working in a space. We want to augment their interaction with your customers because I'm keeping it close enough, right?
You're good. Sound good?
How's it sound? Yeah, better? Okay, cool. So, there's a million different directions we can go with this, right? Because DialPad, I don't want to get into exactly what we do. We definitely do self-service bots. We're going to help you handle tier 1 tickets, help you with automation on those tier 1 interactions, right? Many companies can do that. But what we're doing is really unique in the sense that on the fly, because we have a real-time AI automation that's transcribing your conversation, we can provide your agents insights. We're doing keyword analysis and telling them what to say on a call. Hey, you're monologuing too long. Hey, you need to potentially say this item. A competitor just came up. Here's what you say when you talk to a competitor. In real time. Yeah, this is not post-call. We're not going to give this feedback later. It's when you're on the call. An example, you can hire somebody week 1, and once you have our AI built out, because the nice thing is we already have everything set up. This isn't a 6, 9, 12-month deployment using our AI. We have all the tools. They're point and click. They're in our service application. So once this is set up, you can hire an agent. Here, I'll give you an example, right? When I was first onboarding with DialPad, part of our onboarding strategy, is let's get somebody on the line. So they threw me in the call center. Somebody goes, hey, how do you port numbers? I was pretty green, brand new at the company, a little nervous, right? Well, a little card popped up on the screen and said, 2 to 4 weeks, XYZ, blah, 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 blah. Get your CSR from your previous company. Because we do a lot of SMB business as well as far as enterprise mid-market. Person says, all right, thank you. Calls over. No email follow-up. Handle time was literally nothing, right? You're talking about somebody that was first week on the job, right? And then we take it to another level because like not only do we want to augment the agents, we do a self-service for your contact center agents while they're on the call. So if they get something super specific about, hey, what do I need to like bring you in order for like this Medicaid like segmentation, they can present the material to the agent. The agent can use a self-service bot that helps them answer the question either through chat, text message, live voice conversation. One of the larger contact center customers I worked with last year, they were on the other side of the coin where they said, hey, we need to scale our business. We need to hire employees faster. And I want to make sure every single person that calls in gets on the phone with somebody. So that doesn't mean they didn't want an AI IVR. They didn't want to use a bot. But they're like, how can we scale our business, hire people, and move from state to state to state doing Medicare conversations. We can't really get into specifics, as you know. So I don't know if that helps you understand what we do, but it's like where the direction we went. And we even actually built out an integration with ChatGPT about a couple weeks ago. We rolled it out internally. It's an EAP where we'll give you a synopsis of the conversation after it happens. This person made an outbound call. He tried to persevere through a conversation. So we're just doing different things because of all the AI we've already built. And there's probably going to be some level of piggybacking. And then like the next phase of it, and I've been talking for a long time, is we do AI CSAT. So I don't know how many people work with such customer satisfaction. You either get a 1, like they're pissed off, or you get a 5, they're happy. Well, what happened to all in the middle of the conversation, all the meat, the meat and potatoes? So our AI CSAT is actually going to take every single conversation that happens and provide a score, and then like score your agents to all the responses to all the AI conversations that happen, and start scaling your agents on a like real time basis. So you're getting a weekly report of what's happening, and like that doesn't necessarily always benefit the agent like day one, but it helps the managers, supervisors, directors that are talking to their executives like, hey, what's happening in our call center? How are our agents doing? Right? And then we're doing QA scorecards that are automated by AI. So your AI is grabbing the bottom 20% conversations, populating reports so you can go train those agents, make sure they don't quit, they're not getting frustrated, they're working at home, they got no one next to them. So I'll stop there because I think I had
that's huge. That last part, that whole part about the supervisor and the scripting, right? So I started the conversation off with a question that Tom was nice enough to be honest and answer, and that was the fact that we have the ability to use ChatGPT and others to do things for us, like to go ahead and help us with scoring. So when you think about the contact center supervisors and managers, a large part of their day or week, if you will, is going through and putting a criteria together and ranking and evaluating and coaching people on how to do a better job. So AI can do a lot of that for them, tee it up for them, give them ready so that they can get ready for that conversation and then have an impactful conversation with people and leave them with information. That's some of the promise of AI and how it's starting to happen in materials. Okay? All right. Question for Tyson. So there's OpenAI, aka ChatGPT. There's Google Dialogflow. There's IBM Watson. There's DIY, do it yourself, right? So many of the providers in the portfolio that Kristy looks at have gone that route, right? And so anybody can build an algorithm. I think Luke, you're in the room. Where's Luke? Luke built one. Luke built one, and they literally, with the team, went out and sold it. And so you can build an algorithm.
And it comes back and says, Luke, I am your father.
So my point here is, who's going to win this fight? Is it going to be, does it have to be one over the other? Would it be better to have just one engine that everybody jumped on board and trained? Tell us a little bit about the space of where these algorithms are coming from.
Sure. So not all algorithms are created equal. First thing I'll say is that the meat and potatoes and how you all actually apply them. They're all just fun and games until you inject them into a workflow, or you throw up an enterprise report that has some KPIs and benchmarking, and you start making decisions. So it's all in what you trust, and that's the first key. I think part of the question is OpenAI has a huge advantage in general, which is really compute power. They have a NVIDIA processing farm that has never been matched, and that's the reason that also through their data source with OpenCrawl, 450 billion records and more, it's able to do the thing that we as humans can relate to. It can talk to us in a way that sounds more polished than we can accomplish ourselves. If you just think about how hard it is to write a clean email and that thing just spits out a great email. That's what I admire my wife about, is that she can communicate clean, and I stumble. All right, so GPT happened to end up on a use case that's very relatable to everybody. Now, when you're in a business and you want to leverage this thing, the first instinct is, wow, you're smarter than me, so I'm going to ask you questions and give me information. It doesn't know anything. And it's going to give you answers in a very confident manner. It's difficult to inject into a business application. There are proprietary trained AI that are domain specific. So if you're an attorney or you're serving attorneys, if you're serving medical professionals, specific to psychiatric is different than specific to radiology analysis. If you're, the list goes on. If you're just a taco guy and you really want to understand the nuance of how spicy is really spicy, and you want to have a persona aligned opinion of spiciness, GPT is going to give you an answer and it's going to sound brilliant about it. But if the person with the better training set that's optimized for that problem is going to have a better one. So it's more of like a buffet. It's not actually really like a buffet. It's more like the pro kitchen in the back, where they've got the buffet and then they arrange these amazingly perfected pieces for you. And you have this opportunity. I think that the real opportunity on the application side is, as was already shared, it's kind of like we've got proprietary models, plus you can inject optimized models, plus you can inject generic models. I think that's going to be a really good mark of vendors that are going to support you over the next 3 years. This is a rapidly evolving space. The X factor here is compute power. We just haven't had the processing ability to do it. So AI is able to be a lot smarter in a domain than normal. And we as humans are smarter at giving it training data that's good. So I think that you're going to see much higher quality rolling out over the next few years. And your workflow platforms and your enterprise platforms and your strategic partners are going to be guiding you towards which ones to swap in and out. And you're going to have to put pressure on your vendors to let you swap in the ones that you believe in. Okay, that's going to be really important. But it's not a panacea. On the AI side, like for us AI people, it would be better if we all shared. And OpenAI started open and it went closed. And Microsoft did it to win Azure. And we don't want to go to war with Taiwan or with China over Taiwan yet until we've gotten our GPU processing out of Taiwan. That's why there's a 3-year delay before we go to war. And we pretend to go to war and then we let Xi have Taiwan. Because all we really care about is we need to get graphic processing scaled up, not in China, not Taiwan. And after that, we don't care. Because fundamentally, that's how we're going to win. And I think that when you look at proprietary models in a narrow domain, they're going to outperform GPT. But they will not be able to outperform GPT in anything other than their domain. So it's really like hiring specialists. There's nothing wrong with common sense. You all go after specialists, and they know better. And then you can meet someone who's like really great at everything, but they're not great at that specialty. And you need to think of it like that and apply it in those ways. What GPT is going to be great at is like making you sound great, but it doesn't know facts. So I think it's great to put polish on that, improve empathy, things like that. How do I write a love letter in my language and have it rewrite it in the way that my wife will understand it and actually receive what I'm saying? That's GPT. And I highly recommend you do that.
So the next question I have would be for Kristy, and that is, Kristy, you get to talk to all these different vendors, these piece parts that we're talking about on the buffet, right? And they're constantly coming at you, telling you they've got the next great solution for the client, and they're coming out in different pieces. I've got some that I've seen for specific or retail, right? Like where's my order kind of thing. I've seen some that are specific into or healthcare that have a better connector into like Epic and Cerner and things of that nature, and that's their play. So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing from the specialization of these vendors.
Sure. Before I get into that, though, what I do want to preface it also is that we're talking about use cases of leveraging this technology primarily where we associate it, and that's service, sales, and support. But that's not where a lot of the actual adoption is anymore. It's across all different business units. We call it contact center or CX technology, but it's being leveraged in HR. It's being leveraged across all facets of the business. Marketing. So it's we always pigeonhole it into this one segment, but we're solving for use cases across all different business units that have different types of needs. And it's just called contact center technology or CX technology or AI. Number two is that absolutely one of the things that we've seen a tremendous amount of innovation in the space is verticalizing these offerings and really creating subsets of their development team that focus on all of the different use cases through business curiosity that's being solved with integrations and understanding things like lifetime value of customers in banking or healthcare. And reimagining the patient experience with Epic is a completely different use case than something that is with integrating with Pfizer. And so that now what's happening is because these technologies are built in typically a cloud infrastructure in containers with microservices, they're able to shape them quickly that specific bundles for verticals. And that's the next iteration of what we're going to see. To your point is how these technologies are being shaped specifically for your company vertical that you're working in. And it's something you can still scale. Historically speaking, companies couldn't scale like that. There's too much risk. But now there is the ability to do that.
And so how many vendors do you have in your portfolio?
And just
in this space?
Probably close to, in the CX space, 155.
See the challenge? The challenge is how to navigate that, right?
Right.
And so we do a lot of work in our world on you and your buying patterns, right? People spend a lot of money. Intelisys spends a lot of money. Solaris spends a lot of money. Everybody spends a lot of money on trying to figure out what those buyers are doing. They go and they meet with the folks that write books like the Challenger Sale and the Challenger Customer and things of that nature and look at the science behind purchasing and things of that nature. And I don't need to tell you, you folks do half of your shopping on Google. That's where you start the journey. You look, you check around, you see a little stuff, you educate yourself, you got an idea, you start to go in a direction, and then the confusion starts. Right?
Well, heaven forbid that you do that to self-diagnose yourself if you're sick, because there's a lot of information, right? But we have a mantra, and that is friends don't let friends Google and buy technology, right? And that's because with those 165 suppliers that we have in the marketplace, we've vetted them. We also are some of their largest partners in terms of the amount of business that we're working with them. So we know who actually delivers on what they say they do. And when you Google it, it all sounds the same. It all sounds like they deliver the same thing. And so we can help navigate through that and make sense of the information, which saves a tremendous amount of time, which last time I checked, it is, next to data, the most valuable currency that we all have. It's time. So that's the biggest thing. We do this all day, every day, to make sure that you're not going to make an uninformed decision in a big investment for your organization. And it's the same thing that these suppliers are doing with ChatGPT that are specific for contact center, for example. They're taking the same partnership with OpenAPI, but their development resources are only focused on that segment of leveraging it for AI for, say, cloud contact center. And that's all they do every day. If an enterprise takes that, then they have to actually make sense of it and govern it. And we didn't talk about compliance and data protection of ChatGPT, and that is a very, very big thing. The next iceberg.
That was one of the questions.
This is a good one.
That was one of the questions that ChatGPT asked us to ask, right? Was about compliance and what to do with it, how to do with it. I mean, there's redaction of data and things of that nature, but that's not quite what we're talking about here. We're talking about full-blown compliance.
Yeah.
Good point. One of the things, I'm an eternal optimist. I think that the glass is always half full. And so I think that what we're going to get here out of these use cases of AI today is going to be small, but what we're going to get in the future is the data that we have from these conversations now. And as we log all these conversations over time, we're going to learn so much about your business, your workflows, your potential, right? The ways in which to wow a client in the future. I think that the real meat here is in the data, right? Like everything else. Data is the new oil. We've heard that. That's an old term now. But literally, that's, I think, where things are going to be the biggest growth trajectory is for businesses is going to be in your business, right? So let's say you sell widgets, right? You sell X amount of widgets. You've got a call center, bots listening. You've got sentiment analysis, things going on the back end. You're training your agents. But all of a sudden, that data of every conversation, of every flow, how long they called, where they came from, the IP addresses, the website that referred them, all of that stuff starts to paint a pattern for them, right? And so I can see Tom nodding his head right now as a guy who's in retail. That's important. That's going to be very, very important to find out who your clients are and how to get to them and get better, right? So we've done a lot of talking up here. Want to find out if anybody here has any questions for the panel?
Oh, it's
Oh, Tom.
Oh, no.
why do you look straight at me?
No. So, and this is kind of maybe for some of the CIOs and the IT leaders out there, with this technology coming in, I think it's going to expose a couple of things, right? Garbage in, garbage out,
Correct.
for data. So the CEOs are just like, this is the greatest thing ever. Why don't we do it? What am I missing from an organizational skill set that I need in my organization to fully take advantage of conversational AI in general, right? So my analogy, I can have the best database in the world. If I don't have a SQL developer, i.e. prompt engineer, somebody to train the data, what are you guys seeing that IT organizations are missing in order to take advantage of it?
That's why I'm getting stuck.
Okay.
So, yeah, because your CEO just read that by 2026, it's going to save the organizations $80 billion, right, in human capital. So, of course, you have to implement this. Thanks, partner. Yeah. So not knowing your business, right? Not knowing what skill sets you have on staff. Number one is a big investment that's being made across organizations is a customer experience officer. And really understanding the customer journey mapping before you can apply any technology like this, you got to understand how a customer flows throughout your organization with the employee experience, but also the platforms it's going through and the process in which it goes through. So if you don't have somebody that is that middleware, that glue of a resource that understands that, that's the key as a business fundamental resource. And then from there, it's how do you translate these technologies and don't throw tools to these individuals, but actually figure out, again, I don't know if you have this, but you got to utilize these tools. You got to adopt them. So you have to have a process and a plan in which you're going to adopt them across the company. Otherwise, it's going to fail. And a lot of the companies that I help solve for is they think that the tool that they bought sucks. It's not the tool. It wasn't adopted because they didn't put the process and the procedures in place to adopt it. Nobody wants to take ownership of it. I have all the time. So I want to get rid of a company. It's a collaborative issue. And so that's where you have to figure out how you build that middleware of a person. Technology-wise, I mean, there now is AI expertise, and I think the salary for them is $350,000.
Utilize your resources.
Yeah.
Utilize your resources. Utilize your vendors, right? So one of the things we do really well is vet vendors to find out who has a staff and who can help, right? And so some of those pro services engagements with the right folks, they're going to write these scripts for you. They're going to help you work workflows, right? I think the real future, though, will be an outbound, proactive, omni-channel, meaning email, voicemail, SMS text, etc., type of outbound campaigns, right? So think appointment reminders. Hey, it's dental cleaning time if you're a dentist. Hey, you purchased this from me last time. This is something right up your alley. This fits right in the same genre, whatever. How many people here buy off Instagram? That algorithm kills it. I get very targeted stuff on Instagram. It's incredible. And so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, being able to get that to your client, right?
I also want to take a shot at that. Your question of what resources do you need? The biggest thing number one, No, your greatest current talent in the workflow that's going to be updated. Don't leave them out. They're on the selection and the QA committee. Number one, this stuff is not smarter than your existing people. And they have the sensitivity to understand when something's going sideways or not. They also have the empathy to understand the transition requirement for the rest of the team to start to trust or absorb, the tier 1, tier 2 escalation, whatever that is. Don't forget that you already have your talent that is capable of selection, supervision, quality assurance, change management. Take the best of your current and put them on the transition team. That's critical. The second thing is that the framework I like to use, y'all have done this before. I don't know how many of you near source or outsource communications, especially in customer service. That's exactly what you're doing with AI. It's the same thing. This stuff is not smart. The danger is that we believe it's smart because it's tech. The danger is that we believe we can't understand it because it's tech, and that's crap. That's full-on bullshit. This is dumb stuff. It is really, really dumb, and you give it too much power. So if you think of it instead as I'm hiring a near sourcer or an outsourcer, how would you implement that? Just plop AI right in there, and I think you're fine. Treat it with the right amount of I'm going to train you, I'm going to integrate you, I'm going to check you, I'm going to iterate you, and I'm going to hand over the reins more and more the more you prove yourself. And think of it as a person you're hiring. Your common sense and your intuition are absolutely correct. Use it.
Yeah, I think first, just to kind of piggyback off your point, is like the AI that we have makes my quality of life at work better. So I'm able to spend time doing things that matter to me more, right? Like it'll take notes for me on calls, so I don't have to focus on taking notes. I can focus on the customer. So I really appreciate what you had to say, like, because it is a nice to have. Obviously, to become more essential as you go. But the other thing that came to mind that I run into a lot when I'm talking to CIOs or directors of customer service is like, what can we do with this AI? And I'm like, DialPad, my company, and probably several other companies are turning this whole new movement into like a whole new data set that like a traditional business intelligence team isn't looking at, right? For example, because we can provide you millions of minutes of keyword and analytics in your specific industry, because your call library will be dedicated to yours. Now you can understand, like, well, here, I'll use an example of one of our customers, Tacova's. They make cowboy boots, right? So they've been with DialPad for a long time. We do keyword analysis. They were getting some customer, not complaints, but requests around square code boots. Like, hey, we don't make square code boots, but we see some inquiries coming in. Let's track the keyword. They did 1 quarter of analysis, and the word was mentioned 60,000 times. So they started making square code boots, and it's one of their best sellers that's on the market today. So I think, like, I'm not running a company today, right? I'm generally just talking to y'all, and we're sitting on a call, we're having a conversation. It'll be just understanding that new data that you're getting that you've never had before that can help you make intelligent decisions much quicker, right? Like, I'm talking to a company that works with thousands of different products. And so what happens then when you only have like a couple hundred contact center agents? How do you train them to be proficient on all these different conversations that can happen? Well, let's take a look at the conversations that are happening more, and then we create material there, because you don't want to do 100% of things. You want to do 80% or 70% really well. And that's the direction we're going in with that company is, wow, now you're going to unlock something that now we can start handling the right conversations to take our company a direction before it's on the news or before it's on YouTube, right? Like, trading cards are back, but you wouldn't know that until you researched online. Well, if they're already having the conversation, they know before it's online. So just some things to think about, really high level, but that question brought that to mind.
And so, Tom, just to wrap up that question, I would tell you to utilize your resources. A lot of the folks are already there. People write scripts in your call center, and the same people are going to write a script for AI, right? However, you're going to have to utilize some resources, right? People like me, people like the team that Kristy has on her team, people that we can bring to bear, right? And so I'm a big fan of finding the right vendor that can help you implement their own solution, right? Because they typically know how to do things a little better. That doesn't always go well. I talked to Alberto here, and he had a little experience recently with a vendor who said they could do something and didn't do it. And so it doesn't always work, but that's one of the ways to get that to go. Okay. So anybody else have any questions for the panel? Ollie?
Curious, how do you guys tell companies about their challenges with the data? Because that's what's going to be fed into the AI platform, right? So a lot of companies don't have a data strategy, and they have data everywhere. What do you tell those folks?
The data living in different places is a challenge, right? There's no question about that. Who here has multiple data lakes? Couple hands, right? That's a challenge. How do you get the data to talk cross-functional? How do you have it available? You got to present it. I like the analogy that Tyson used of the cooks in the kitchen all having a different buffet, but they present you with a product, right? That sounds really cool, but how do you actually do that, right? I see Luke DeReuter over here picking his head up. This is a deep conversation. How do you get the data to be presented and to be available? That takes some architecture and design, right? At a high level. You need to make the data presentable. You need to make the data there, right? And that's a great conversation for one of the vendors that you're trying to solve for. Would be my answer to that.
Maybe data that doesn't exist.
It could be. It could be future data that you're getting later, right? It could be data that doesn't exist today. Anybody implementing AI today in a customer experience? Anybody have? Yeah, of course. Yep. And it's a wild, wild west right now. We're a long way from selection there, correct? We're still in the heavy evaluation stage, and we're seeing everything from that's very interesting, that sounds a lot like a human, to oh my God, I'm never putting that in my business. And so that's eye-opening, right? We had this client we were in this engagement with. We had a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader company present their demo the other day, and it was terrible. It was long pauses, delays, sounded like a robot. It was terrible. And so, you have to do your homework there, and you have to make sure you look to see what's going to work best for your business, right? Awesome. So without further ado, I'm going to say this is a wrap. I want to thank our panel. We have some experts here. Luke, come on up. Okay.
What's more important, the data itself or the algorithm that creates the algorithm?
The data or the algorithm? What's more important?
It's valuable.
The team that's implementing the algorithm on the data. It sounds trite, but the technology is not magic. It's the data quality, the data applicability, and then its ability to integrate with your actionable workflow. So one of the things I just wanted to mention, vendor selection. The way that I like to think about it, because if you don't have good data aggregation, it is possible to get a specialty AI chatbot for a year that's going to outperform you. So you can punch up in an area, but then you're going to learn, and then you're going to not like it, and then you're going to want to replace it, make your own, whatever. But if you're hiring like a baseball player, how do you know who's the next great baseball player? You're like, who coached you? So that's the way to think of these AIs. You want to dig deeper into understanding the team behind that developed it. Many of these vendors are repurposing someone else's AI, and they have no idea what the training set was. They don't know the vintage of the training set. They don't know the domain of the training set. They don't know the label space. If you can't sit there with someone and they can tell you the primary, if they sell it, well, it's done with a neural network and it's on an NVIDIA cloud and it's non-explainable AI, so it's really fancy. That's just bullshit. Yeah, they're going to know what their core label space was coming in. They're going to be able to tell you that this is a legal document analyzer, and we went through a whole bunch of case law, and it's done primarily in the English language, but we did augment it so that it also covers EU law, so it's got barrister stuff in it too. But with the last training cycle was in 2019, but that's actually okay because we're ahead of everybody else. You have no idea how freaking hard it is to get this data. They're going to sound like that. They're not going to sound like, oh, it's non-explainable neural net stuff, big data stuff, regression, gotcha. If that's what they're saying, that's okay. Hey, refer me to the people that can answer this question. If it's a third-party vendor, I don't care. Just get me to those people. Let me verify the training source. Let me verify the quality. Let me verify the recency and the applicability to my domain. And that's cool. What you often will find is whatever they're selling you is not going to work, but you realize it'll work great in some other part of your business. So ask those questions.
Awesome. Anybody else have a burning desire to ask the panel a question? All right. Hopefully we all see some promise out there for AI in our business. We also know how to utilize our resources and go and look for folks like us to help vet vendors for you and bring the right solutions to the table. Hope this is informative. I hope this is thought-provoking. I hope you guys like the panel.
Hey, Mike here. Hope you liked this boardroom session. Please check back to our future sessions as we're recording a new one every month. If you want to reach out, look for me on LinkedIn or send me a note at mike@sidepath.com. That's Mike at sidepath.com.